Birkenstock is making billions of dollars every single year, but it was not always this way. For some people, the story of how simple craftsmen were able to build a multi-billion-dollar company is incredible, but to others, the Birkenstock story is a tragedy of unethical corporate greed gone too far. Birkenstock faced countless rejections from shoe shops, had conflicts with trade unions, and achieved success in the shoe industry through cutthroat tactics. This is the insane story of Birkenstock. Johannes Birkenstock was born in 1749 in a small Hessian village of Germany. His parents were craftsmen, but they struggled to make enough to get by. So, from a very young age, he lived a simple life of rural craftsmen and making shoes from start to finish, processing leather, fitting it to the last, attaching insoles and soles. At the time, most people living in Germany's countryside were poor and could only afford one pair of shoes, which had to be functional and robust. This pair of shoes would be repaired over the years by a local shoemaker. Sometimes, for the love of poverty, they would even be handed down from generation to generation. Then his grandson, Conrad Birkenstock, took over the shoe shop. At this point, Conrad thought that he was going to live a simple life, like his ancestors did, take over the family shop and make shoes his entire life. But, unfortunately, this time was not going to be the same. When the 20th century rolled around, Germany was undergoing a rapid transformation. Steam engines, railroads and electricity were becoming commonplace across much of Europe. New factories were built to keep up with the demand. But this resulted in a disaster for shoemakers. Shoemakers were being left by the wayside. They were not useful anymore. It was no longer required to make shoes from scratch. And craftsmen were downgraded to the role of cobblers, whose sole task was to mend factory-made footwear. For Conrad, it was not acceptable anymore. So he had to find his way out. He didn't want to spend all day long repairing shoes. He wanted to become rich and do his own thing. So he decided to focus on quality and turned towards orthopedics. Conrad decided to go to Frankfurt and started taking lessons and training as a shoemaker so that he was able to open his own orthopedic shoemaking workshop. Frankfurt, at the time, was the center of the shoemaking craft. Conrad took on what was known as the shoe reform movement and brought the movement's theories to reality. He understood that in order to differentiate himself to all the other shoemakers, he had to do something completely different, something innovative. So, in 1897, Conrad developed a fully anatomically shaped shoe last. Even the underside was countered. He decided to call these shoes health footwear. Conrad was trying to improve the shoes in any way he could. In fact, he wasn't driven by money, he was driven by his idea. He genuinely wanted to help people, but his drive was soon going to take its way down in the company. In 1959, Conrad was focusing all of his attention on making the products better, improving the footbed, the insole and the soles. But, by focusing all of his attention on trying to improve the shoe, he stopped caring so much about the sales, and this made the company's revenue decline. He got to a point where his financial woes forced him to leave Frankfurt and move to Friedberg with his family. At this point, Conrad was too old to continue running the company, so he decided to pass the company to his eldest son, Karl. Karl followed his father's footsteps during the First World War. He visited specialist shoe stores and shoemakers and explained them the use and effect of the Birkenstock system, which was simply the combination of fully plastic last and a flexible footbed. From 1939, Karl continued to run the company, which at the time had 13 employees. Karl decided to take the idea of foot health even further than his father. Karl was able to get over 6,000 people to attend his course, but he quickly realized that the method was not optimal. This way the sales would have been limited, but since it was important to him that his flexible insoles were fitted correctly, he wanted to avoid all the incorrect use at all costs. Karl took his father's ideas and developed them further. In 1936, he patented the ideal shoe, a handcrafted piece of footwear based on the idea of enabling walking as nature. In 1954, Karl's son, Karl, decided to join the family business, taking to new technologies and materials with a keen interest. In 1963, Karl released his first model, the original Birkenstock footbed sandal, an athletic sandal with a flexible footbed, which has been called Matrix. These later laid the foundation for the company's expansion since the 1970s. However, the market launch in 1963 was a disaster. At the time, nobody wanted to have a standardized sandal. There were sandals for men and for women, and nobody wanted to offer a gender-neutral sandal. Because it was opposed to the shoe fashion trend at the time, the Italian stilettos, and consequently orders failed, putting the company on the edge. It was a disaster. For this single move, Carl was burning the company's profits and nearly had to close the company. He had to find a way. He started studying other companies day and night and tried to understand what he could do in order to make up the loss. And after 2 weeks of research, it seemed he found something. He tried to use direct marketing and it resulted in a positive result. He was able to get his first sales. So Carl thought that if he wanted to continue making sales, he had to continue doing solely direct marketing. But he wasn't aware of what was nearly going to happen. In 1966, Margot Fraser, a really popular German-American dressmaker who resided in Santa Cruz, California, decided to travel back to Germany to visit a spa in Bavaria, where she was recommended maidrits, which were the flexible footbed created by the Birkenstock company to help with the foot ailments caused by tight shoes. Fraser tried the maidrits, and she was absolutely astonished. The relief from her foot condition and her enthusiasm for the sandals was unbelievable. So, Birkenstock were introduced in the United States, but at the same time, since the shoes were weird, nobody wanted to have them in stores. Many shoe stores rejected the sandals due to their appearance. So, instead of being in shoe or clothing stores, Birkenstock was forced to locate them in health stores. But despite all the rejections, things still worked out positively for them. In the 1970s, the company brought a spike in sales. In the United States, Birkenstock's shoes became the most popular among young men. The shoe became popular with the hippies and others who had a back to nature philosophy and appreciated the natural foot shape and foot-friendly comfort of Birkenstocks. Hippies and representatives of the tech movement in California discovered the shoes as an expression of the unconventional. In the 1970s, Fraser successfully continued to sell them from organic supermarkets and quickly expanded with the company, but all of this conviction was clearly not realistic. The growth came at a price. The company had never been this big before, didn't even have the experience to manage a company of this size. This inexperience led to conflicts with various trade unions within the company. The shoemakers wanted to negotiate better wages, improve the working conditions, and secure benefits. But at this point, Carl was left in no choice. Either lose all of his employees while trying to maintain the profits, or accept their terms. He was put with his back against the wall, and he had to agree to their conditions. Fortunately, after all of those problems inside the company, Carl was able to take a deep dive into the fashion world, celebrities and designers. He literally sent models down the catwalk in sandals. Pictures of models also adorned covers and articles in well-known fashion magazines. As a result, the sandals also became increasingly popular in the so-called mainstream, until the multi-brand strategy gradually eroded customer interest. Birkenstock became a household word throughout the country. In the early 1990s, due to the introduction of Birkenstocks into high fashion, Carl was able to enjoy another spike in sales among high school and college-age Generation Xers. Instead of using shoes like the Nike Max Pillars or the Timberland boots, everybody was using the Birkenstock sandals. But at this point, Carl was 72 years old and didn't want to continue working forever, so he decided to finally retire in the early 2000s. The management and the ownership of the company were taken over by his three sons, Christian, Stefan and Alexander Birkenstock. In February 2021, the private equity firm, backed by Bernard Arnault, the owner of the biggest clothing brands in the world, such as Dior, Louis Vuitton, Bulgari, Fendi and others, acquired the company for $4 billion.